Hey, it's Miss Billman. We're zooming through Unit 6, and this should be 6-3 homework. So, obviously, write my name on there, but I'm going to be following these questions very specifically because my answers might be different than yours, but this is just what I do. So, I want to draw a base for a prism on the centimeter grid below. Then I need to choose a fractional height. And then I'm going to visualize this prism and write an expression for it. I'm going to grab my marker. These markers are from IKEA, if you're ever wondering. They're some of my favorite markers. My base will be a 4x3. So I marked it out in my marker. I just thought a pencil would be hard to see. So a 4x3 base. Remember, this could be the top and the bottom, but it's not the height. So my base is 4 times 3, and because I can pick any height in the world, but it needs to be a fractional height, I'm going to say my height is 2.5 centimeters. I'm just going to put that out there. So it's a pretty sizable rectangular prism. So I would write this as 4 times 3 times half is equal to my volume. So I'm going to explain the volume of my prism. So when, and also on my 4 times 3 times half, it should say 2.5, but we're going to move on. The way I can explain height to you, especially in fractions, is that there are 2 full rows, because those are 2 full centimeters. But that half is like having fraction cubes or algebra tiles that are cut in half but still make up a row. But because they're half, I'd have to put 2 together to make a whole. It sounds confusing. I swear when you draw this out, it makes more sense. So there are 12 cubes that would be on this like bottom layer, right? Because the height is 2.5. So there's 1. Yes. Now I'd have like another cake, like kind of like a cake, another layer. There's 2. Woohoo. And I'm saying that there would be 12 because my base is 4 times 3. So that's 12. Second layer, 12. Ooh, but then that third layer, because it's 2 and halvesies, that half means all of those cubes would be cut in half. Well, because there'd still be 12 cubes, even though they're half, that would really only equal 6 because I need a full cube, right? Kind of confusing, but I swear the more we work through this, the more you'll be like, oh, Miss Billman, you should have just started with that. I know, kind of weird, but just go with me on this. So if I were to find the volume, which I totally can when it says calculate it, I can do 3 times 4, which is 12, and 12 times 2.5. Now, multiple ways I can do this. I can put my 12 over 1, and I multiply that by 5 over 2. 12 times 5 is 60 over 2, which equals 30. So that's really how many squares would be on there. Or I could count my cubes, which is 12 plus 6, which is 24 plus 6, which equals 30. So looking at the fractions for all of these rectangular prisms, let's go ahead and calculate. I like to put mine in a improper fraction, but that's what I prefer. So 7 halves multiplied by 9 halves is 63 fourths. I'm going to multiply that by my final measurement, which is 6. So 6 over 1, 378 over 4. 4 goes in there 9 times, 36. Bring down the 1, 18. 4 goes in 18 4 times, 16. So this would be 94 and 2/4, so 94 and 1/2. So my total volume is 94 and 1/2 inches cubed. Still cubed. So 2.5 times 2.5 times 2.5. So 2.5 times 2.5, stack it. That's where I feel comfortable. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 2 is 12. Put down a 0. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 5. So we get 625, but I need to move my decimal to the left twice. So 6.25, multiply that by 2.5, 25, carry the 2, 12, carry the 1, 31, put down my 0, 10, carry the 1, 5, and 12. I add this all up. There's 5, 2, 6, 5, 1, move my decimal 3 times, and I get an answer of 15.625 centimeters cubed. This would also be really helpful to use a separate piece of paper. Weird, right? Yeah, I write really huge, so sometimes it's kind of weird that I try to mush that all in there. So 1/4 times 1/4 times 2.5. I'm going to turn this to 5 over 2. 1/4 times 1/4 is 1/16. 1/16 multiplied by 5 over 2 is going to be, I wrote that on there, is 5/32. I can't make that any smaller, so my answer stays 5/32 feet cubed. Number 7, a rectangular prism has a volume of 7.875 meters cubed and a height of 3.5 meters cubed. What is the area of the base of the prism? So set up my equation. Volume is equal to length times width times height. So I've been given the height, which is great. That is going to be helpful. But if you notice, I wrote base times height. My base is like if I multiplied my length times my width together. They're asking for my base. They don't really want specifically what each number is, but they want what it would equal. So 7.875 is equal to base times 3.5. I divide my 3.5 out, and now I'm going to write 7.875 divided by 3.5. I have to move my decimal over with my 3.5, which means I have to do the same on the inside. So now it's 35, and how many times does 35 go into 78? Well, twice, because that equals 70. Subtract the 8, bring down the 7, still twice, because that would be 70. Now I have 175. I like to think in quarters. It just helps me think quicker. I'm going to put 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 15 plus 2 is 75. There you go, 175. So the total area of the base, again, they're not asking specifically what is the length and the width. That could come later. But the base, my length times my width, is 2.25 meters squared. That I would then multiply by my height and get 7.875. A rectangular prism has a volume of 9 inches cubed. The area of the base is 4 inches cubed. What is the height of the prism? So 9 is equal to b times 4, or 4 times b, because in this case they're giving us the base. So now I need to do 9 divided by 4, and that'll give me the height. 4 goes into 9 twice. There's 1 left over. So 2 and 1/4 inch squared. I hope this works out, doing a different way to find volume.